Hey everybody, before we get started, I just wanted to say, if you enjoy our content and want to stay up to date with our videos, hit the subscribe button. It really helps the channel. Thanks. So, on to the video.
The next day, we open with Ichiban going to the scene of the crime. He reaches out desperately to a body being hauled away, and he confirms that it is indeed Masumi Arakawa. The captain of the Seiryu clan believes it was most likely done by Omi loyalists who had a grudge against Arakawa for the dissolution of the houses. Ichiban is in mourning when he is called by Hoshino again. He was the last person to see Arakawa alive. They are to meet again in Heian Tower and discuss Arakawa's last moments. Hoshino lets Ichiban know that last night Arakawa seemed like a man finally at peace. It was most likely because he finally achieved his goals with the dissolution of the Omi and the fact he got to see Ichiban again. Described as a man stepping off the stage to thunderous applause. Hoshino informs Ichiban that he offered Arakawa some security on his way home. Arakawa denied his offer, and Hoshino did not push the subject further. Hoshino is torn by this and feels as though he failed Arakawa. He informs Ichiban that a new faction in the Kanto region is trying to form, and he believes it was one of them that got revenge for the dissolution of the Omi. He also believes the only one who could control that faction is indeed Ryo Aoki. Ichiban does not believe that Aoki would order the death of his own father. Hoshino has a man bringing in a tray, and inside it is a pistol. Hoshino bids Ichiban to take vengeance for Arakawa, and he would send the whole Seiryu clan alongside with him. Ichiban denies the offer, saying that Arakawa would not want Ichiban to kill his only son. Ichiban wants to open Aoki/Misato's eyes and stop him from continuing down this path. He believes the best way to reach Aoki is through Kume, the Bleach Japan candidate he is supporting. He believes by getting to him, they can rough him up enough and he will set up a meeting between Aoki and Ichiban. After attempting a few times, security is very tight and they are unable to approach Kume. Hoshino comes up with a plan to make Ichiban a running candidate. As he could not find a suitable person to run against Kume, they can use the fact that Ichiban is running for office to get close to Kume. Ichiban will offer a handshake and Kume will have to do it or lose face and get bad PR. With more help from the Seiryu clan, Ichiban gets a campaign van and follows Kume to the park where he's giving a speech. Ichiban arrives and makes his candidacy known. The two have a passionate debate, and Ichiban destroys Kume. Instead of shaking his opponent's hand, Kume retreats and drives away. But this sparks a huge wave of support for Ichiban, as he was able to put Kume in his place, and is well known by the many local residents. The party follows Kume again and is able to get close for a handshake and a short conversation. But he is interrupted by Jun, who received a tip that the Seiryu clan chairman is in danger. The party drops everything and go to the Seiryu headquarters. When they arrive, it is much too late. The captain is severely wounded, and no one has heard anything about the chairman, Hoshino. Ichiban is able to break through to the main office, and when he opens the door, he sees Hoshino dead, shot in the heart. Joe is sitting in front of the chairman smoking, and says Ichiban is late. Ichiban is always late. On any job Joe sent him on, even the smallest errand, Ichiban was late. He admits to killing Hoshino, and that he was a pillar to the community, and without him, the Ijin 3 will fall, and so will the Grey Zones. Ichiban, infuriated, asks why they would do such a thing. They already have so much power, why continue this way? Joe claims it's Ichiban's fault, because he started running in the election. Even though Ichiban has a slim chance of winning, Aoki does not like any signs of defiance. The chairman was killed in Ichiban's place since he became a public figure. They believe the Ijin 3 were the only thing keeping him in the race. Ichiban is shocked by how far Aoki and Joe will go. He attacks Joe and asks if he killed Arakawa. Joe taunts him, giving him a non-answer. A fight then breaks out between the two. Ichiban wins and asks why Joe is blindly following Aoki's orders. He says his life purpose is to protect Aoki. He lets Ichiban know that he did not kill Arakawa. Aoki did put in a request to Joe, but he disobeyed him for the first time. Even after everything, he could not bring himself to kill a man he respected so much. He respected Arakawa not because he was his Yakuza boss, but for another reason. Joe tells Ichiban a story he had never told anyone before. When Joe was 15, he got a woman pregnant. The two were very poor and just getting by. They were unable to support a child. So the two hoped that by not visiting the hospital or any doctors, she would get a miscarriage and the problem would just go away. Months later, she gives birth in a bathroom stall. The two, still unable to support a child, concoct a plan to abandon the baby. Just lock it away like it never existed. They put this baby in a subway locker, locker 99. They lock it and take away the key. Unable to cope with what they had done, the two had a change of heart and returned much later to get the baby. When they arrive, they see a crowd surrounding a man punching a locker. Masumi Arakawa broke into this locker thinking it was his son in there, but it was actually Joe's. Masumi's wife did indeed go along with the exchange at the subway, but she put the baby in locker 100 and did not lock it before leaving. She asked the owner of the soapland she worked if he does not hear from her to go to the lockers and see if the baby was successfully exchanged. When her boss arrived, he found a baby quietly sleeping in locker 100. This man was Ichiban's foster father, Jiro Kasuga. From what happened that night, it is most likely that Ichiban is Masumi Arakawa's true son. Ichiban does not believe it. Joe claims a simple DNA test will reveal everything. Joe starts to walk away, but is stopped by Zhao and Jun. He comes along peacefully, saying to do whatever they'd like to him, as he has no future. Joe refused the hit on Arakawa, and from that moment, Aoki thought of Joe as disposable, and gave him this hit. He knew no one would come out walking alive after killing a Yakuza chairman. Ichiban asks who Joe thinks took the hit on Arakawa. He believes it was Ishioda, the man from the Omi invasion. Joe is then taken by the police. Afterwards, Jun reveals who gave the tip about the attack on Hoshino. It was Joe himself. He did not want to kill the chairman. He tipped off the Gomi Jewel before the attack, hoping that Ichiban would come in time to stop him. The party feels as though they failed Hoshino and Joe. Ichiban is frustrated that Joe always expected way too much out of him. The next day we open with Ichiban in a rage. He thinks of Arakawa's last words, and the dream he would have. He questions if Arakawa always knew that Ichiban was his son. Yakuza are hunting down his friends non-stop now, and Ichiban means to get to Aoki by any means necessary. He goes out hunting down Kume. He goes to his office only to find Yakuza waiting for him. Ichiban begins to beat a man senselessly, trying to get more information. The man gives him everything, but Ichiban does not stop. He was nearly about to kill the man, until he is stopped by a familiar stranger. This was Watase's bodyguard during the dissolution. He recently came onto some information on Aoki's next move, and he wanted to share it with Ichiban. Seeing the state that Ichiban is in, the man withholds the information, telling Ichiban that he is not in the right state of mind. He tells the party to meet him in the Gomi Jewel base, and they will discuss matters there. Once arrived, the man stands directly in Ichiban's way. He points behind him that the information he seeks is there, but it is useless in his current state. In order to defeat his enemies, Ichiban must think like them and act upon their worst fears, not something he will be able to do in his current state. So the man asks Ichiban to prove that he can be trusted. The best way he knows how is through his fists. A brawl ensues, with the familiar man coming out victorious, but he was able to finally knock some sense into Ichiban and cool his head. The party head to the next room where they discuss Aoki's next plan. His plan is to assassinate Joe Sawashiro while in prison, as Aoki expected him to die and he cannot have any loose ends in case Joe talks. Footage is found where the assassins are holding up, and the party make plans to head that way. Ichiban thanks the man and asks for his help. The man lets Ichiban know that he has already done too much, as he is a man that should no longer exist. He cannot interfere anymore. He disappeared years ago to protect something he loves, and does not want to compromise that. Ichiban and the team head to the warehouse where Ishioda and Joe's assassins were held up. The hired assassin is known as Mirror Face, and able to take on the appearance of anyone. He successfully looks like Adachi and tries to trick the party, but Ichiban is able to figure out the imposter with some quick thinking. The party interrogates Ishioda and tries to get him to convince he killed Arakawa. Ishioda says he was assigned to kill Arakawa until someone got in the way. It is revealed that Tendo Another one of the Omi Alliance captains betrayed Arakawa that night and shot him. He thought by dissolving the house and leading this new house, he would be able to gain more power and infamy. So he went along with Arakawa's plan up until it was time for him to rise. During this review, Aoki is listening in on the whole thing, unknown to Ishioda and Mirrorface. The room was rigged to explode, and once confirmation Ichiban was in the room and won, Aoki gave the order to set off the charges. Ichiban is presumed dead. Time passes to the night of the election. Aoki is giving a speech to the public in Kamurocho, when in the middle of the crowd, a loud man with a megaphone interrupts him. Ichiban was thought dead by the world, but went into hiding after barely escaping the explosion. He announces to the public that he simply wants to shake the governor's hand. He quickly jumps onto the campaign bus to get in close. Aoki is caught off guard by Ichiban, thinking he was surely dead. While shaking, Ichiban got in close and told Aoki that Captain Sawashiro recorded his conversations with him, and there's evidence of him putting out the hit on Arakawa in the family office in Kamurocho's Millennium Tower. Aoki believes that this is a bluff, and Ichiban simply responds that it doesn't matter to him, and Aoki will come to find everything he worked for torn down by tomorrow. Ichiban walks off into the night, and the party lays low. The plan was simple. Even though that it was obviously a bluff, Aoki cannot take that chance, even if it's lower than 1%. He would send in his top men to the Millennium Tower and tear the place apart, looking for that proof. This was the ploy to get Aoki to send out Tendo. Tendo is Ichiban's main target, as he betrayed Arakawa and murdered him. Knowing Aoki's habits, he would not be satisfied until the job was done himself, baiting Aoki to come to the tower as well. The team will wait for Tendo to arrive at the Millennium Tower, then attack during the search. They are able to break through and eventually reach Tendo in the Arakawa family office, where he sat waiting for Ichiban, knowing it was all a bluff to pull Tendo out. A brawl ensues, and then we cut to Aoki in a live televised conference. During the conference, news breaks out that a warrant was issued for the murder of Masumi Arakawa. The press begin to panic and flood Aoki with questions. Aoki attempts to calm them, but it begins to trend online that Aoki is not his real name, that he is indeed Masato Arakawa. Aoki retreats and heads towards the Millennium Tower as Tendo is not answering his phone. He eventually finds Tendo sitting in the office, waiting for his arrival. Ichiban and his party's bodies lay lifeless on the ground. Tendo asks what else needs to be done, and Aoki tells Tendo to kill those who were conspiring with and support Ichiban. He goes on about not wanting to have any more close calls, and even mentions involvement with the explosion that was supposed to kill Ichiban. Ichiban and the party spring to life. Aoki is taken aback and looks towards Tendo. Tendo rises and says he made the mistake of hiring him and treating him like he was a disposable peon. He then walks behind the desk and pulls out the true Tendo from behind. The man was Mirrorface, and it seems like Ichiban was able to get him to help after Aoki nearly killed him during the explosion. Saiko and Jun walk out of the shadows with their phones, recording the whole conversation. Jun threatens to post it online. Ichiban asks Aoki to let it go and that everything was over. Aoki refuses to give it up and orders his men to kill everyone in the room. A fight breaks out with Aoki and his goons. Ichiban is distraught and tries to get to the bottom of what changed Masato after all these years. He begs Masato to start back from scratch and tells him he will be there with him along his journey. The police arrive to take Masato away. When being taken into custody, Masato is successfully able to take a police officer hostage. Ichiban again begs Masato to stop, as taking a police officer hostage is shoot on sight. They will kill him no matter who he is. He tells them he does not want to see any more of his family die. Ichiban expresses how he's upset he was not around to stop Masato from losing control. He begs and begs for Masato to come back from the dark. Masato denies Ichiban's feelings, saying he reminds him of his father, and that's why he's always hated him so much. Masato successfully escapes the Millennium Tower, but it is too late. News is spreading of his crimes, and the truth is out. There is no going back. Masato goes back to where it all began, the lockers. Ichiban is there waiting, telling him he has known Masato his whole life, and he had a hunch he would come here. Ichiban still believes there is some good left in him, and that he might be willing to start over from the bottom. Masato still denies these feelings and points the gun at Ichiban, then points the gun at himself. He expresses how he was born with an embarrassing and useless body. He worked hard to improve himself, but after everything, he was never satisfied, because no one really appreciated who he truly was inside. Ichiban tries to rebuke his statement that his father and Sawashiro and he always cared for him. Masato is not having it, thinking he's being lectured. Ichiban fights off this attitude and screams at him that if he ever wondered why, after everything he's done, why Arakawa and Joe never gave up on him. Ichiban describes that it was painful watching Masato fall. Ichiban continues to try to get through Masato's head that all three of them loved Masato and would do anything for him. Ichiban is starting to get through to him and tells him passionately that he always thought of Masato as his brother. He begs him to stop, as he cannot take watching his brother kill himself in front of him. Ichiban begs and is finally able to get through to Masato. He pulls the gun away from his head and puts it into the locker in front of him. He then calls his campaign manager and tells her that he's going to turn himself in. Masato and Ichiban look at and acknowledge each other. Then a man from the crowd steps in and stabs Masato. It was Kume. After finding out what Aoki/Masato had done, he took it upon himself to kill him, to remove and help clean up the world. Kume steps away and walks off into the crowd. Ichiban realizes after a few seconds Masato has been stabbed and holds on to his brother. Masato says some words into Ishiban's ear before he passes out. And like that fateful day many years ago, Masato is run off to the hospital. We open with Ichiban praying to the Arakawas. Nanba notifies Ichiban that Joe got life in prison for his crimes. He expresses that it is sad that Masato never found out who his real father was. He then asks Ichiban if he wants to get a DNA test to see if Masumi was truly his father. Ichiban simply states that he has two fathers, Jiro Kasuga and Masumi Arakawa. They are the men who made him who he is today. Saiko joins the two and they head to the funeral to say their final goodbyes to the Arakawas. In the funeral, Dojima let Ichiban know they are starting a security company and using that to help Yakuza that lost their way in the dissolution. They offer Ichiban to join them as Arakawa was supposed to, but Ichiban rejects their offer. He says Ichinjo is his home. The people here are unreplaceable, and he owes them for everything. Saiko and Nanba overhear the conversation and are relieved Ichiban decided to stay. The rest of the party arrive to see what decision Ichiban made, and he tells Saiko to give everyone the good news as she overheard. He then walks off into the distance. Ichiban looks off into the distance, remembering Masato's final word, live Ichi. Starting over from rock bottom, I'll take those odds. Letting his brother know to live his life, and that if he could, he would listen to his advice and start over again. Ichiban looks to the sky and says,
once you're at rock bottom, the only place to go is up. There's no shame in being at the bottom. All that matters is how you decide to climb back out of the darkness. There's always a ray of hope up there. I was lucky to learn that from you, young master.